now we actually have some real life examples of people who are shining their light and doing amazing things in this space. And so without further ado, I'd love to start introducing them or just having them share a little bit about themselves. So who do we start with? I'm trying to see, everybody's like squares are in a different place.
Yeah,
I guess
Brianna's
Jiquanda is the
first.
first one that I see.
Okay,
Oh,
I was
Brianna's
gonna
right.
say,
See,
Brianna's
it's
the first on
for
mine.
everybody. Right. Okay, so Brianna, you go, honey. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us about you and your story a little. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, of course. My name's Brianna. You can call me Bree. Everyone calls me Bree. It's so much easier. I'm based out of Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm relatively newer to the space. I joined about 2 years ago, but I started off as an ops assistant, just doing kind of background basic work. And then from there, I was like, wait, I kind of like what I'm doing. Like, I want to do more of it. So I've just been here ever since and hoping to continue to grow. I love managing people, taking leadership roles, but also maintaining operations and compliance. So watch me grow.
Thank you. We will be watching you grow, Brianna. We will be watching you grow. Bree, we're going to call you Bree today.
There we go.
Okay. Lisa is actually next on my screen.
Okay, there we go.
Hello,
we'll just
everyone.
Go with it.
Lisa Jones out of Atlanta, Georgia. My company is iMill Inc. I'm originally from Alabama, but I lived here in Atlanta for some time, so now it's home. So iMill, I'm the CEO and founder of iMill, and we focus as a patent pending marketing technology that enables video to automatically play an email to increase engagement and to deliver storytelling moments in the inbox. My journey has been an interesting one as a woman in technology, not being a coder, but still having a vision. And I'm just excited to be here today and to see all of your smiling faces and for our dialogue forthcoming.
Awesome. Thank you. And the first time, that's why I remember I wanted to connect with Lisa because we are fellow Alabamians. That's why.
Right. That's right.
Yay.
Right.
Love that.
Okay. So next on my screen is Jiquanda.
There we go. Yeah.
Hey y'all, it's so great and refreshing to see some familiar faces and new faces and already learning so much. I'm Jiquanda Nelson. I actually got into the space. I had a role at Concentrix, and my role itself was more so around diversity, equity, and inclusion, employee engagement. So I got to work on culture stuff or lead culture stuff, well-being, and what was formerly corporate social responsibility, which I transformed into our ESG or environmental, social, and governance, because it was really beautiful to investors who want to invest their dollars and get a good ROI, but also do good in the world. So I got into the space. I had a lot of partnerships with our sales and our marketing, and I really learned a lot in this space. And so that's how I got to meet all these wonderful folks here in this space. My role now is I'm CEO of Diversity Window. I was not a founder, but my role was to come and transform and scale and bring diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging to organizations literally across the world. We also have a partner organization, JIQ People Solutions, where we do more so around HR, data analytics, project management. So for us, we're all about how do we not only just do DEI, but how do we really bring a culture of belonging through every single part of an organization. So really honored to be in this space with all of you.
Oh, we're so grateful to have you here, Jiquanda. You know, my first memory of Jiquanda was her walking into, I met her during PACE when I did the keynote back in 2022, and she walked in the door of the hotel with this beautiful sequin shirt on, and I was like, wow, talk about coming into a space.
We need to know her.
Come on now.
Yes.
And then the second memory I have is the day that I was doing my presentation. I was really nervous, and I said something about my outfit, and she said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not doing it. She immediately started to encourage me. And I just thought, yeah, definitely. And we have just been friends ever since. So thank you. I'm so happy to have you here, Jiquanda. Okay, so next is Cruz. Cruz, introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. And I am so grateful to share this panel with these lovely ladies. So thank you again for having us here. My name is Cruz A. I am based out of Connecticut. I'm originally from New York City, so right across the state line. I was born and raised in the Bronx. I entered the performance marketing space back in 2018 when I started a career with Clarion Events, which is where I met Sarah Malo, who is my forever and dear friend. I started in the digital marketing portfolio, and then I navigated through the food and beverage portfolios, and I went up through the ranks. Started off in customer service and operations, and then I became a key account manager, where I started integrating some of my marketing and my sales capabilities. And then I graduated into becoming an event director, so just overseeing the gamuts of all of the events that we ran. I transitioned from Clarion back in September, which was very bittersweet. I still hold a lot of strong ties to the company and my colleagues there. And then since then, through the motivation and the push from a lot of the ladies on this panel who have heard some of the stories of when I was thinking about it and my thought process behind it. But since then, I've entered the entrepreneurial space as a freelance event visionary and strategist for folks in the performance marketing space. So essentially, I support and consult with companies who are looking to invest their dollars more wisely within the trade show and event space, because as you guys know, a lot is changing in the performance marketing industry. The way that companies are going to spend their money is going to look a lot differently because a lot of their business models are changing. So events are going to continue to be essential because that's where you grow your business and your network, but you just have to do it differently. So being able to do that and being on the other side of things, right? Initially being the person to construct the sponsorship to now putting people up on game to really identify which one is valuable for them has really been a treat to be a part of. So thank you guys for allowing us to be here.
Yay! That's awesome. It
I
seems
love
like
it.
I have little
What I love
connections
about
with everybody.
this,
No, go ahead, Myrna.
that's what I was just about to say. No. See, you and I, we think the same. I was just about to say the connecting of dots. Like I've always said that marketing is a connecting type of industry, but the fact that there's so many dots connected and it's so diverse at the same time is just powerful to me. So I was just gonna ad lib on that, but
Yeah, that's
love
amazing.
the fact that you're. Love it. All right, so where do we get started with questions? We had 7 questions, but we're going to streamline that down to make, be appreciative of everyone's time. So I
You want to
figure
take the first
they've
one?
already answered some of the questions here, I feel like Ndala, but I feel like if we were to go to the one question that I think is really important, it's, how has your experience been like in this industry? Like all of you seem like you kind of just evolved into this space. So I'd love to hear just, we could randomly, candidly just answer that. But like, how has your experience been? What are some wonderful things? What are some barriers? Like, just share your experience with us.
I'll go first
Anyone
if
can.
that's okay.
Awesome.
So I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by women from the start of my experience in this space. Ashley on this call, she was my boss 2 years ago starting off. She's guided me along the way. She's been my biggest cheerleader. The fact that she's on this call right now, even though she is no longer my boss, means so much to me. Like, I'm probably going to go cry about this later. Like, it's awesome. Yeah, like my heart right now is just beating so hard. Having Amanda and Sarah here, they welcomed me into Link Unite just so openly. But how that inspired me was just hearing their stories and just being surrounded by women from the beginning was like, you can do this. Like, you can do this and you can keep growing in this. Because I thought, I'm just going to be a little ops assistant and just support people and, do background work and that's it. But no, that's not my path. I like to be facing with people. I like to have conversations. So they've encouraged me to do that. And that's why I love being here.
I want to go to what Bree says, because a lot of my experience as a woman in this industry are those that I witnessed as a bystander, right? Like I walked into the industry, especially being in events and serving the industry. So you get a little bird eyes view of what's going on in the landscape. And I've been receptive from the beginning to know that it was a male dominated industry. Like that was very clear as day. I know that a lot of women were not treated fairly. I've heard stories that some women have been given the runaround, maybe not paid on time if they were on the contractor side. So we've watched it all. But to Bree's point, I think that even in all of those stories that I may have experienced myself or heard through someone else, it has been the women that really created a sisterhood, the sisterhood that existed within the industry that really allowed to tell the story of the beauty that also happens here too, right? Because if something happens to someone else, it happens to me too, because I'm a girl's girl, but it's also the way that we protect, look after, and care for each other and present with each other with opportunities. And, you know, Bree, I remember when you and I were together at Park City for the last Link Unite retreat, that was the conversation that I was having with you about the transition that I was taking place. You know, Sarah and Amanda, you know, Ndala, all of you guys have been a part of those conversations. And when all of us have made changes within the industry, whether we were looking to jump ship or we were looking for another opportunity, we were the ones calling each other to say like, hey, this person is open, maybe you should have the conversation. We were the ones connecting each other. So despite some of the challenges that very much exist because they are real, I think the women and the sisterhood and the camaraderie that we've established amongst each other also showed the power of the connectivity that we did share. So that has also been my positive experience in it too.
I love that. Yeah, because that was one of the things, Cruz, that I was thinking that I keep saying and I keep sharing about Link Unite is that, you know, being in that space with other women, it's for me, it was a weird thing because there were some things that I had been used to when you're in a crowd of women that was just not happening when we were with Link Unite. There was so much just positivity and support and encouragement and consistently so, you know, which was just, it's a unique space. That Link Unite space was definitely a unique space for me to be in. So yeah, so thank you. Lisa, Jiquanda, do you guys want to share on that question as well?
Absolutely. So for me, being a female founder in tech, as I mentioned, my growth and transition is always evolving. I remember when I started my company and talking about the email space, I found that in the space, it was a lot of IT. I dealt with more males in the space going to different forums, but I didn't have a problem with that at all. But when you are an emerging tech, the challenge that I experienced initially was finding early adopters, because some would say, well, what's wrong with the way email is today or whatnot? And I'm thinking about performance marketing as continuing to evolve and to grow. So in experiencing finding early adopters, came across some that would say, well, Lisa, there's no RFP, or we don't have a way to introduce something that no one's asking for as yet. So it's been a challenge from that side. But the good news is that's why it's so important to stay the course of the journey and to keep working on your technology and keep working on your solution so there's more visibility for it. And numbers speak for themselves when you look at an engagement of video. So we were able to show those metrics. And so as a result of that part of the experience, the great part of the experience is now we have enterprise customers that see the value of having this video and email experience, and we're just continuing to evolve from there. As again, as the founder of the company, it's just been a wonderful thing to be able to validate what you're doing, to be able to contribute to something global, and to be able to have colleagues that support you along the way.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
I resonate so much with all that you just said, just from being a woman in the tech space and understanding that data doesn't lie. Like I've had to show my worth a lot by, you know, clapping out context to prove it. And so I resonate with you on that. And then once that does happen, it's like doors open and, you know, you get a lot of different experiences that can come out of that. But okay, Jiquanda.
Something too,
Oh,
I want
sorry,
to say
honey.
it's important to have change agents in an organization that will embrace trying something new. You know, it's easy to stay in a comfort zone, but you need to have change agents.
100%, 100%. I love that. Jiquanda, honey, I didn't want to leave you out. That's all I was
no,
like.
that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to hear these experiences because those were not mine. You know, it was, and this has been for much of my career where I have been the only woman. I've been the only Black person sometimes. I've been the only Black woman. And when we think about even intersectionality, which I think is so beautiful about this conversation, because yes, we are all women, but we have all these unique experiences. Sometimes even being the youngest person in the room for much of my career because of the leadership roles that I've held. And so I've had those experiences where I feel like I have had to prove myself, right? Or people are questioning like, well, who are you? Or like, you know, as y'all say, I clearly have sequins on again. I love sequins, I love patterns, I love colors. So sometimes people are even like, you're a CEO? Like, oh, are you the assistant? It's like, no, I'm actually the CEO, right? Because people just aren't used to it now. Like, but I also feel proud because I'm hearing these experiences and it's like, okay, someone that was in a role like mine helped shape the culture so that, you know, the Briannas and the Cruzes of the world, right, can have a culture where they can show up and be themselves and have that support, right? I will say, honestly, in my career, even some of my advocates have actually been men, right? And like for me, I have been truly blessed to see the advocacy and allyship throughout my career, because I remember early on in my career, I would reach out to, you know, women that I'm like, I admire them, I want to know more about them. They didn't make the time, right? Or, you know, maybe the advice wasn't as great as I think it should be. Like even comments about my hair and how I should wear my hair. And do not get me wrong, these women meant well, right? They wanted to see me succeed and etc. But it's like, your pathway isn't my pathway, right? Like I'm going to show up like this. And if I have to stay at my role as I am because of my hair, I'm okay with that because I want to be able to show up as my authentic self and do my work. And so I think, you know, those are some of the challenges that I face, but I will say, that has helped. What has helped me is like, I'm a bet on myself, period. So I love that Lisa's like, I'm betting on myself. Like I might be in this space, I may need to find these folks, but I have always bet on myself. And I have been the person to reach out and say, look, like even when I've had challenges, I mean, I think about like even in a role like Concentrics, where we're in 41 countries at the time, right? We have 275,000 staff, so many different experiences. I was actually the second Black executive that they had, and I was the youngest in the entire organization. And so that was new for people, right? And so I spent a lot of time like, let's chat, let's do a one-on-one. Like, what has your experience been like, right? We beef in these meetings, but what has your experience been like? Like, what do you want to see? How can I actually support you? And, you know, this is where I can use your support. And so that's really helped me along the way. And those are some of the ways that I've overcome the challenges of being the only, the other, or the different. And I love those experiences because it forces you to really be curious about people and get to understand people who have all these different experiences, and really gain that common ground and understanding.
I love that. I love that so much because I mean, so much that you said. I'm thinking of a couple of things. One is, you know, the relatability factor and making it so that you can connect. Because at the end of the day, that's what marketing is. So if you're in this space of marketing, connection, whether it's physical, digital, whatever the case may be, that's the core element in doing any of the things we're doing right now. So the fact that we are speaking of the different ways to connect is amazing to me. And to your point, you brought up something else I think that's also valuable to add. Yes, the allyship of men in spaces, in this space specifically, who have also helped pave the way, you know, open the doors, whatever the case may be, has also been monumental. And I think, you know, it would be wrong of us not to at least acknowledge that, because it does take a community, it does take more than one aspect to help raise or to, you know, have people shine their lights in the way that they should be lit. So anyway, just wanted to add that in because, you know, there's some people specifically in this room who, you know, I just figured out I got to build a personal board. I'm about to be enrolling people that are in this room right now. So that being said, they will be, you know,
You've been making a list.
women,
You've been making your list of names over on the side. Yes. Making
my list. So love that. I love that you guys all shared so much diverse and different experiences, but all, you know, amazingly powerful. And the fact that you're still moving forward and still growing and elevating, I think is pretty powerful. All
I
right,
also want to say
Ndala,
this too, Myrna,
take it away.
right before we move to the next question, I want to say this about what Jiquanda said about showing up as her authentic self. I think that that's really important too, because honestly, I can't imagine Jiquanda being anybody other than who she is. And for her to show up any differently than she does would change, it would just change, you know, it would change everything. So, and that's a
We need
statement to
that.
be made. We have to have that, especially among other women. I think women can tell when women are not being authentic.
Absolutely.
And the truth is that to be fair-minded, right? The critical thinking piece. So to be fair-minded, you have to recognize that there are reasons why people are not being their authentic self. There may be things happening where they feel that they have to, you know, not shine as brightly, or they have to do certain things to kind of diminish what they would normally do or what they would normally be. So it's really nice to have women within a space encouraging other women. We can see it being modeled, and then we can also be encouraged to be our own authentic self. So thank you for that, Jiquanda. So, okay, so let's, and I think we actually had an answer. I think Brianna actually answered this a little bit too, but I would love it if any of the rest of you could say, if you could share how other women, if there are any specific women in your lives who helped pave the way for you in this space that you know of. Specific women, or even maybe groups, or, you know, just in your mind, is there anybody you can think of?
I'd like to share just like a full circle moment for me. So Miss Lisa, when I first started at OB Media, I joined a call very much like this. I think I was like 3 months in, so like 2 years ago around this time. So new. I knew nothing about the space. I was just like, let me join this call. I think Ashley was like, you should join this call. It'll teach you some more stuff about performance marketing. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm on the call. Lisa, you are talking so much about your experience and how you've moved up in this industry, like how you're a trailblazer. And I was so inspired by that. Like, I remember after the call, I just took a minute. I said, let me do some research. So I found you on LinkedIn. I was just so impressed and just so inspired. And after that call, I was like, I want to be a Lisa one day. Like, I got to work towards that. So ever since then, like, I keep you in the back of my mind when I'm like, I want to, you know, grow into more leadership roles. I want to own my own company. Like, I think of you. So I know we haven't formally met, but I just wanted to give you your flowers and say thank you. Like, I remember that call.
That is so kind. You've totally made my day, Bree. And it would be an honor to follow your journey and support you any way that I can, because that's what we do. But thank you for that. That means a lot.
Thank you.
Man, we cannot make this stuff up. That was amazing. I didn't know, because I'll be honest, like Lisa was like she and I are dear friends. And so I made it that I was like, she has to be a part of this call. We didn't even know this. So the fact that you guys, full circle moment, I think it's so telling. Again, that connection of dots. I think it's something to be said. And I almost feel like that needs to be like the resonating theme of, you know, growth and, you know, aspiration. So anyway, love that. That was amazing.
I want to follow up, Bree. There's a couple of women I want to highlight. And it's important for me to mention them all because they all demonstrate different examples of how women can really show up for you. It's in terms of sisterhood, in terms of just allyship. The first person I can think of who's not on this call, but I did tell her I was going to mention her. It was my predecessor before I became an event director at Clarion Events. Her name was Courtney Muller. And Courtney Muller at the time was a C-suite level executive at Clarion, now has ventured on to do bigger businesses. But I remember during the time where I was still a key account manager at the time, she just randomly asked me a question. She said, hey, you know, have you ever considered being an event director? And I didn't know where that question came from, but, you know, she took that moment to affirm me and say, like, you know, I really feel that you have the ingredients to be a very successful event director one day. And while it was something that I've always entertained for myself, it wasn't until someone else demonstrated that they saw me too, even in moments where I wasn't really prioritizing being seen by you know, the executive leaders in the company. That really went a long way, because all of a sudden my name started being mentioned in rooms that I may not have had access to on my own, or probably would have taken me a lot longer to get there. So that was really something that I can continue to think of. And I keep, you know, reference the Link Unite ladies, we reference Sarah and Amanda, but I do want to shout out Sarah because Sarah and I worked on the same event at a certain point in time. And we say this to anyone who will listen, or, you know, most of the Link Unite ladies probably heard this already, but Sarah and I were not supposed to be friends. And we were not supposed to be friends because we were in an environment where that wasn't really encouraged, right? Not saying that anyone forbid us to, but it just was not something that was encouraged for us to do. So Sarah and I, both individually and separately, saw the forest for the trees. We read between the tea leaves and saw what was going on. And we said, well, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to be friends because we see the value in each other and we want to foster a relationship outside of what we have going on here. So even when we have went through our own journeys, however many years later, Sarah, we are still here. And through Sarah, I met Amanda, and then I also met Bree, and then I met Ndala. Through Ndala, I met Sean Reed, and it just continues to blossom. And now through the space that I'm in, invited by these very same ladies, I get to meet Lisa, I get to meet Jiquanda, and the village just continues to grow. So I do want to emphasize just the beauty of network and how these particular women have helped me grow, you know, to blossom as big as it is. So thank you all.
I'm just so stinking proud of you, Cruz. I just had to say that. I love you so much. You're so awesome.
I love you too, Sarah. Thank you.
Love it.
In my space, within the email journey, again, because that's my world, is this whole inbox and that we're inundated with that. Some of the women that have helped shaped and helped me to transform include, I would say one of our first corporate customers was the Coca-Cola company. And there's an organization within Coca-Cola and within Fortune Brands, of course, called Supplier Diversity. And the goal of supplier diversity is to help women-owned businesses and diverse businesses to navigate the landscape, to find contract opportunities ultimately for you to deliver value. And I would like to say that Johnny Booker was the head of the Coca-Cola supplier diversity team there, and she had her direct reports that were all engaged in the process, and they were open to innovation. And that made a big difference because once we secured Coke as the second client, Coke made an introduction to the next client. And these women paved it forward when they didn't have to do it, but they took it upon themselves to say, you know, this is something innovative. This is something new. Let us find a way to help Lisa, her cause as a Black female founder of this technology, and to keep moving forward. So that's one aspect. Another aspect has been in this particular space within email, there's an organization called the Women of Email, and the two founders are Jen Capstraw and April Mullen. And as a result of joining that organization, that has provided me platforms for more people to know about video and email. And, you know, you should always think about, what do people say? We know what people say when you're in front of them. They'll smile and everything. But what do people say when you're not in the room? And so Jen Capstraw was speaking, one of these founders of Women of Email. She was speaking at a conference somewhere, I want to say it was California, and she was on stage, and next thing I know, she puts up this screen that has iMail examples on it. I didn't know about it. Someone else made a post on LinkedIn and said, you know, I just heard about this incredible product. But she did that when I wasn't in the room, and she was celebrating to say, this is the only Black female in this space, and, you know, support her in this cause. And I'll never forget that in thinking about it's so important how we show up at any point in time. And I'd also like to say Kristen Haynes, who's the CEO of MailCon, has been instrumental because Kristen provided platforms for women to speak at conferences regarding their sharing their thought leadership and in different areas. And the reason that's so important is because we as women, it's important to be seen, it's important to be heard, and it's important to deliver visible impact collectively as a community. And so for these women who provide all of this support at different parts of the journey and for times to come, I would just say for all of us, it's important for us to reflect upon it, but to also pay it forward.
Absolutely.
I can just
Love
share
that.
I had a leader, she was in executive communication or executive communications and marketing executive communications. I don't remember what it was, but I had come from a previous organization, and like I think about the Breeze of the world, right? Like I was in a coordinator role. I kind of took it because I just had a baby. I had a master's degree, but it was what I needed to do at the time. And then once, you know, my babies got a little bit older, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I can go all in. I want to do more. I know I can do more. And the leader that I had at the time just did not see it. And I remember in a conversation of me telling her, like, these are the things I want to do, or you let me know what I need to do to grow because I want to do more. And she told me, you just won't be able to do that in your role. This is my lead, this is my manager, right? And so I like go out and I'm start looking for all these other roles. And so I got an opportunity that was actually a level higher than the role that I had just asked my manager how I could prepare for. I wasn't saying, give me the job today. I was saying, I want to work on these things, right? And this leader, she was a Black woman. She gave me the opportunity, and she, and in her eyes, which was even more beautiful, she was like, I was like, thank you for taking the chance on me. She said, taking a chance. You are great. You're smart, your energy, like you're a go-getter. She was like, I'm lucky to have you. And it was just that moment, like for her, it was just like, duh. And for me, it was like, oh my gosh, you gave me a chance. And she said, you are like the shiny quarter or the shiny penny on the floor that no one decided to pick up. I was picking that penny up because it was shiny and it was bright. So I think about women like that. And then also, it's so funny y'all have Bozeman St. John, because I'm like literally obsessed with her. Like I'm probably like comparative to the Beyonce Beehive, I'm like number 4 in her group. Like I am obsessed with Bozeman. I was introduced to her in 2016. She had just joined Uber, and a colleague said to me, she was like, you need to listen to this podcast. It was the Essence podcast. She said, you need to listen to this podcast because this lady reminds me of you. She talked about showing up authentically. She talked about, you know, building relationships with other women to support and not, you know, stepping on other women to get to where you need to go. And so, but like, if you follow her, I'm telling you, she is amazing. And that has been a vision for me, even back, you know, 8 years ago now. It was a great, like, of affirmation for me that I can show up in this space authentically and still have opportunities. Because before then I was like, if I have to stay in this role, I don't even care. But I saw her and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's a chief marketing officer. And she goes in with all, like, as herself. And I love it.
Love that.
Yeah, that's why I felt like, you know, as an example, just to say, like, because I love the fact that we have tangible ones and we also have the ones like that where they're not necessarily in our diaspora, but they're like, you know, because she's epitome of an example. I mean, even for me, you know, mixing the corporate and the personal is a big one, because her personal brand and the ability for her to build that is so important. And I love that. So love that she resonated with you guys too. Love that. Okay, so let's see. I feel like we've gone through a lot of these questions, Ndala, just organically, but I'm thinking, like, where do you want to take it in terms of next?
Well,
like, topic?
Let's ask directly for some advice. I mean, you know, let's do
There we go. I like that one.
What advice would you give to aspiring women leaders in the field?
Love that.
I can go. Something I've learned is watch your language in the terms of using confident words. So I've had to stop myself a lot if I'm typing an email or like asking for something. I just wanted to, or I feel, no, I am, or I'm telling you. And just that little bit of changing how your words are, like, someone's going to listen to you more when you sound confident and when you tell them, this is what I'm telling you. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm sure about it, so you should be too. And that's been all the difference for me. So that's something I would tell somebody who's looking to move up. Watch your words.
Solid.
Thank you. That was actually great for me. Thank you. You just gave me some good advice there. Thank you so much, Brianna. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it changed the game for me. Like, I even, like, some of my team members, they'll, you know, message me, hey, like, I feel like we should. And I'm like, rewrite that. What do you mean? What are you telling me?
This is what's happening. Yeah, this is going down. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's so smart, because I will say this specifically, like, in my space, I am unicorn, and typically, like Jiquanda said it, like, one in whatever. And so I tend to code switch, if we want to call it that, very well. And in that code, I mean, nothing beats sidebar related, but not really, but kind of. I was in an Uber and I was talking to my husband on the phone. So the Uber driver heard me speaking to my husband and, you know, whatever. And then someone called me from work, and the switch, they literally turned around and was like, is that the same person that was just, and I said, and that's what brought me to mind to say, you know what, I need to be more mindful, to your point, of the way that I am speaking to make sure that it's still showing up as who I am in that. So your words and minding them is really important. And just being very straight and to the point, I think will definitely help elevate and help build the confidence someone has in this space for sure. So just had to
Absolutely.
add that in.
Like I've had
Mhm.
a lot of like male higher ups. So like, yeah, I've had direct reports that were female, but essentially, you know, a lot of the men were running the show. And a lot of what I was doing kind of had to be elevated up to them, and they weren't going to listen to me if I wasn't confident. Like
Mhm.
they absolutely weren't going to take into consideration something I was saying and wasn't feeling good about it or wasn't 100% about it. And even if I don't always feel 100%, I'm not going to let anyone know that. I'm going to stand by my
There we
words. And
go.
this is what it is. And I've seen pretty good results that way. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Love it.
My advice would be also, let's see, I wanted to say something related to, my advice would be that every day is not going to be sunshine and rainbows. I'm a big Rocky Balboa fan, actually. And one of the things he talks about, it's not about how hard you hit, but how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, because that's how winning is done. And that resonates with me. So that,
Yes.
yeah, you know, when you get hits, because challenges will come, but you have to start each day with gratitude, no matter if it's an up or a down, regardless, you keep going. And I think that's just so important. So when you get down, you get back up. When you're in question, you just have to dig deeper when it doesn't go your way and figure out what's the lesson in this of how you continue forward, because the goal is you're not going to stop. You
Mhm.
might pivot, you might make an adjustment, but you're still going the course of your journey. And that every step matters in the journey, right? Each individual step. When I think about briefly, the Wright brothers in 1903, the first flight, and they had 5 people there, and the flight only lasted 12 seconds. Now imagine that in 1903 in North Carolina, the plane took off, it's 12 seconds, and they celebrate. Now, today we would say, what is 12 seconds? 12 seconds is nothing. We can't go anywhere in 12 seconds, but it's the
Right.
concept that they embraced
Yes.
what those 12 seconds meant. And I think it's so important for all of us to think about how every step in our journeys matter,
Mhm.
and it's telling of our stories.
Love it.
Yes.
Love that.
There's a couple of things that were said earlier today, you know, and it's interesting that we're being asked this question because I found myself giving this advice to someone this past weekend. So alignment. I love what Jiquanda mentioned earlier about creating the culture so that future generations can have a more comfortable existence. I think that's going to be relevant to what I'm saying. And also the part about staying curious, right? Like just that's a commitment that I made to myself a couple of years ago. I'm going to remain curious about everything that I enter about the world that's around me. And Lisa, you mentioned about being a change agent, right? Like the importance of that is. And I guess my advice was and is to not be afraid to be that change agent. And I think that could be a pretty blanket advice, but I think it's very specific to the space right here, especially in the intersectionalities, you know, being a woman, potentially being a Black woman, a woman of color, queer, et cetera. We are the people who can feel even more apprehensive about being that change agent, right? Because we're already walking into a space in which we don't see too many of ourselves, or maybe we're just through experience to know that people are going to be a little bit more critical about the advice or the expertise that we're contributing, but we cannot be afraid to be it. And it is easier said than done. I always find it that it's always good to tap into our power of being underrated, if that has applied to us. I was on site for an event that I was contracting for, and there was a girl on site, a fellow younger Black woman as well. She was actually on site because she was interviewing for the role, right? So she passed the first round, second round was kind of the culture test. And I remember, you know, she gave me the feedback afterwards that she did not get the role, but then she was able to give me the feedback like, I don't really think the team liked me too much because they mentioned a question and I kind of made like a weird face, you know, like, why are we still using paper? Like she challenged a lot of their current processes. And that's when I took the moment to say, that was the moment where you just nodded your head, took notes, like take notes about the things that you feel you can do better, and just, you know, go with the flow. And then when you actually get the job, one, you're showing that you're a team player, but two, keep those notes with you so that you know where to assess your value. If you have identified from the very beginning, I can potentially do this better, or hey, they don't really got this quite right yet, and I think that I can influence them to go in a different direction, use that as your superpower, as opposed to looking at something and just backing down from a challenge, or looking at it and saying like, oh, maybe this is not for me because why would they do it like this? So that was a feedback that I found myself giving this young lady for the same reason that you mentioned, Jiquanda. We have to give that insight moving forward. We have to pay it forward, and we can't leave people in the dark, right? I could have easily looked at that situation like, wow, that was pretty foolish of you to not, you know, to kind of, you know, be very loud with your face, like I like to say. But I had to leave that moment and say, okay, well, I'm hopeful that you get an opportunity afterwards, but moving forward, maybe this is how you could have played it to your benefit. And then this is how you also add your value to any space that you're a part of. So very important to do that so that the future generations can also be a part of a community that embraces them too.
I love that. And I think for me, there's like three things. I'll make them very like succinct. So the first one for me is there is nothing wrong with you. Imposter syndrome is a lie. Okay? It is a lie, right? Nobody is perfect. And I love that, Cruz, you talked about it. We all could use moments to be better leaders, to approach things, to partner, all of the things. Everyone can do that. There is nothing wrong with you. You are qualified. You are enough. And if you don't have all the answers, smart leaders put people around them that could potentially have the answers you don't have, and you could figure it out. There is nothing wrong with you. Imposter syndrome is a lie. The second thing is you do not have to do this alone, which I love that everyone has said that in this conversation. The power of connections, relationship, even with those who are most challenged, right? I have found even great power in building relationship and being curious about people who we literally bump heads, right? And that has gone a long way. So that's the second thing. Like, you don't have to do this alone. Be intentional about your relationships. I'm an extrovert, so that's a lot of relationships, but even my most introverted folks, right? Or folks who are just like, I don't want to do all that. 2 to 3 intentional relationships are so important. And the third thing is show up as your authentic self and never apologize for it. Never. Because while it may be in the culture that you're in right now, it's hard, it's challenging. There is another space out there. There are 8 billion people on this planet. You are welcome somewhere else. So go to spaces where you're celebrated and not tolerated.
Okay, so I love all of that. I think we could have written, ladies, I do believe we could have put a book together.
Sure could have.
We could write a book.
Yes, the power of connection is real.
Love it.
Everything happens for a reason is real. Like, Lisa, that one right there, it's like so many times where you think that something is a drawback, but you know, lo and behold, it's like, oh my gosh, thank goodness that went down the way it did, because it opened up this other door, and you just never know. Powerful. But paying it forward, huge. And you know, being that, like, you know, it's almost like, what would I tell my former self thing to someone, and passing that information forward, and you know, providing it and being that nurturer or that supporter there, huge. I'm just like,
yeah, it's big.
I saw Sean writing notes in here too. So I'm just thinking
and
through.
you know what? I love the statement. You don't have to do it alone.
You don't
I
have
just
to do
even
it alone.
even because I always say this, right? So I'm in the performance marketing space and I'm loving being a part of it, but I'm critical thinking, right? So I'm a critical thinking consultant, and everyone that has there's so many people right now in this space who I've spoken to, who've given encouragement, who've given advice. I mean, have had Zoom calls with, you know, 45 minutes to an hour of, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And I have just not felt alone ever, you know, with all of the help and support. And that is huge. That is really, really big. I'm seeing in the chat, we've got some LinkedIn connections in the chat. So please do, yes, connect with our panel speakers today. Ladies, thank you so much. Myrna, ladies, just, this has been amazing. And I hope that everyone has had an enjoyable time. It's been enlightening for us, and we've gotten some really good information, some good positive encouragement as well.
Exactly. I'm just going to ditto and reiterate. What were you going to say?
No, I was gonna say I
I
was
don't
gonna
know.
turn the floor over to Sean. I don't know if we should because we only have like 2 minutes left, but go
2
ahead, Myrna,
minutes?
go ahead.
Yeah, no. We could do that. I was about to say, like, I was just gonna ditto and reiterate some of the thoughts. I mean, I think like seeing all of the faces that have shown up today in itself is pretty amazing and powerful. And I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be a co-host to this amazing conversation and take time during the day and pause and really reflect on, you know, the impact that your role has in not just your life, but others, because it's a connecting of dots where you don't even know you may be creating impact for someone and you are.